This is the Business Stuff Podcast. This is where I will share the lessons I've learned from advising thousands of businesses over almost 30 years. Each episode will give you practical insight to allow you to learn from other people's mistakes. I'll be pulling in experts from our team and the world of business, and together we'll make sure your business is giving you what you want. My name is Martin, and this is the Business Stuff Podcast. Hi, it's Martin from the Accelerator team, and this is our next episode, and it's on quiet quitting. Jack, what's quiet quitting, and why do people need to care about it?
So basically, first of all, lovely to see you, by the way.
Oh, sorry, yes. Hi, Jack.
Do you not introduce people anymore?
Sorry, this is Jack, also from the Accelerator team.
I know it's been a while since I've been on, but you know.
Yeah, for viewers of the OG episodes will recognise Jack from early days. It's been like 3 weeks, Jack.
Exactly.
It's not that long.
A lot of things have changed. Anyway, quiet quitting. So essentially, it is. It's not actually people quitting. First of all, it's not people.
So we've got the Great Resignation at the moment, which is people leaving their jobs. Yeah. Mm-hmm. This isn't that. This is something else. Yeah,
it's more of that people staying within their current roles. However, they're unsubscribing to kind of the traditional hustle culture where, you know, you've got to do a little bit more in order to progress.
So they're opting out of
overtime.
Putting their all in, yeah. They're not doing overtime, they're not volunteering. Is that a reasonable way to...
Yeah, so they're
basically doing the bare minimum to get by.
They're working to the letter of their job description, which, you know, it's an interesting point actually, because there are a lot of people that will do that anyway. Which, again, absolutely nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Yeah. However, it's those people that historically have done that a little bit more. You know, the rising stars of in a business, and then but the quiet quitting phenomenon relates to them actually unsubscribing, as opposed to the people that were never going to do the above and beyond. We're just there for the paycheck. It's those people.
Because to be fair, what we're not saying here is that as evil capitalists, people should do more than they're paid for. We're not saying that. Mm-hmm. Everyone should be paid and remunerated and rewarded properly for the effort they put in.
Yeah.
It's just that you've always had people who put that little bit more effort in. Mm-hmm. They interpret what they're meant to be doing as more than someone who is quiet quitting. They'll read it with a negative view of as little as possible, mm-hmm. whereas someone will go, but I'm happy to do that. I think that is within my role. And it's more of an attitude thing, is it? Is that
it is, yeah. There's people that will...
It's not people should work an extra Saturday and not claim overtime. We don't mean that, do we?
No, not at all. That's not what we're saying. As you said, it's those people that are always like looking kind of a little bit beyond what they are, maybe looking at, well, I know I don't want to be doing this job forever, I actually want to progress. So it's those who have that attitude of going, right, so what little bit more can I do? Like, can I shave a few minutes off this task here?
How can I stand out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So people aren't trying to stand out now, is that yeah.
Yeah, so okay. It's people that they may get an email on, I think a good example is, someone will get an email on a Friday afternoon and go like, could you quickly pull together this report for me, which may take a couple of hours. It may take them like 15, 20 minutes, half an hour after when they were planning on leaving. And traditionally they would have gone, yeah, fine, I'll do it. Why not?
And I'll just knock it off next Wednesday. You know, I'll get the time back next week. Mm-hmm. Now it's like, I haven't got time.
I'm off. I'm going to the pub. Thank
so
you very
it'll
much.
have to wait till Monday.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay then. So what's the impact of this thing? Because I'm no expert, but I've always understood that in any business, there's 80% in the middle who are turning up. They're not disruptive, but they're not exceptional. They're your solid base, and that's good. You need a solid base of people who will just do what they're meant to. You always had this, let's say, 10% who are your drivers, your motivator, the people who are really blowing you away, doing excellent work. And then there's the detractors, the people who are actually harming the workplace. Mm-hmm. Are we seeing a shift in that balance? That those numbers might not be right, they might not be accurate, but are we seeing a shift now? Are there more people falling into the actively disengaged as well, or is it just that some of the top drivers are becoming turner-uppers?
Yeah, well, if you think about it in terms of how, you know, a culture within a business works, is that those motivators, that top 10% that you said, they're the ones that are driving forward. They're the innovators. They're the ones that are creating positive change within the business. Yeah. And ultimately, they're the fuel for the future success of the business.
But this isn't a hierarchy thing. We don't mean the leaders. This could be someone in the lowest job in the business, but they're really like knocking that job out the park.
Yeah.
So this not to be confused with we're not talking about the board versus, this isn't a power point, is it? It's it could be any person in any role, but who is just performing above and beyond, working to do the job they want, not the job they're doing, kind of.
Yeah, and if you think about it, if that natural progression doesn't happen within a firm, it quickly starts to stagnate, and then you see that more people may drop into kind of that kind of detractor kind of role. And again, when you have too many of those people in, then that's when it really affects it, and the culture of the business deteriorates, and then as a result the performance does as well. So it can be quite a worrying thing when you have your top motivators, because they're also generally your biggest advocates as well. They're the ones that will be absolutely subscribe to all the values and behaviours of the business, and they're suddenly like, oh shit,
everyone's been in a coffee shop where you hope you get the person who smiles and is really happy to see you, rather than just the ones who go, what do you want? If the people who are like really putting that in stop putting it in, it starts to affect things like your performance, your delivery, and a host of other things, doesn't it? Plus it doesn't give, I suppose, if you're a new starter in a business and there isn't that lead exception of someone, be like them, no one's got anyone to aspire to, no one's got a good practice to copy if they want to, it probably just escalates, does it? Or snowballs, sorry. It's a downward thing, not an upward thing.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. And again, when people's noticeable change in attitudes, particularly if you're like client facing, for example, and they're going, oh, hang on a second, I don't feel like I'm getting the right service. Yeah. And that's happening across the board. Then like suddenly your clients aren't as happy, they're maybe starting to have their heads turned, then businesses kind of evaporating out of... Because
this is then a vicious circle, isn't it? Unhappy team, unhappy clients ring up and shout at your team more unhappy, unhappier clients. It's just...
Repeat.
Rinse and repeat, isn't it? So is this an issue that's... I mean, I think the jury's possibly still out, but you're more on this than me. Is this something that if people kind of realised coming back to the office after COVID or back to the factory after lockdown or whatever, it's kind of actually maybe this isn't what I want to do? Is it that people are now in the wrong roles, or is it just they've had a taste of work from home however you want, whenever you want, as long as the work gets done? What's driving it?
I think there's a few factors. I think similar to the Great Resignation, where frankly people kind of had that epiphany moment when, what the hell am I doing?
I don't want to do this anymore.
So there's still, I think that is to some extent, some people might have a change in circumstance. They may have a family, they may get married, for example, and they go, actually, I don't want to be flogging my guts out, and I'd quite like to spend some time with these people.
I don't want to stay late. I want to be home for dinner every night.
Which again that's largely unavoidable.
And also reasonable. Again, we're not saying people should miss their family dinners.
Exactly. Why aren't you working a 24-hour shift?
Yeah. How dare you go home ever? Yeah, well, that's not what we're saying.
So that's and that's beyond a business's control, and they shouldn't be losing sleep over that. It's
so it's actually what they're doing while they're there. We're not it's but they're turning up. Is this easy to spot? Will people kind of go, actually, I think this makes sense. I've got a few people who used to give more. How will employers and team leads and managers know if someone's quiet quitting, or they've just got other stuff going on in their life? They might be depressed, they might be ill, it could be anything, couldn't it?
And again,
what's the quickest way to...
The quickest way is just to have a conversation, and I think this is where some of the issues may snowball, because the natural instinct of a manager, if somebody isn't performing how they used to, is that they're being lazy.
Is to treat them differently.
Yeah. And as a result, then they have those negative connotations. They then start to ride them harder and go like, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? And then they just go, absolutely, I'm checking out right now because I didn't sign up for this.
The bare minimum plus I was putting in is now bare minimum. Yeah. Reluctantly, never mind. Yeah.
So it's all about kind of how the manager initially reacts. It should be relatively straightforward to see, as you can say yourself. It's like, well, they used to stay around till 5:15 because they had something to finish off, but now they're actually at 4:59. They're switching their computer off. There's people that maybe used to volunteer for, you may have like some kind of charity committee or something like that, like additional projects that go on out within your firm where they actually put their hand up and go,
I'll help. I'll do that. Yeah, I don't mind. I'll help. Yeah, put me down for that. I'll give it a go.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not now, but again, it doesn't mean they've quietly quit. or they're quiet quitters, it could mean that they're actually just going through something.
Yeah.
So the key is really you just need to figure it out.
Yeah, it requires that sit down.
Because a quiet quitter's got an issue that made them a quiet quitter, but if they're not a quiet quitter, there's something else wrong, isn't it? But either way, you need to get to the bottom of it.
Absolutely. And
you've got an obligation to look after your people, so you should try to figure it out, shouldn't you?
Yeah, and it's all about the context of how you approach that conversation. It isn't
why the hell didn't you volunteer for that thing you used to do?
Your performance is in the toilet. Like, what the hell's wrong with you? It's more of a, I happen to have noticed that you're not quite yourself at the moment. How can we help with this? There's some really interesting stuff that we've done internally about mental health training, where we have
because there's like 6 things that affect someone's ability, it's workload, relationships. I can't remember the other 4 off the top of my head, but there's 6 things that drive someone's mood and attitude at work, isn't there?
Yeah,
if you get them wrong, it can knock people off kilter quite easily, can't it?
Absolutely. And we use the mental health continuum model, where you can basically check in and be like, on a traffic light basis, kind of, so how do you feel kind of mentally, like in terms of yourself right now? And again, that's something they can just say, well, actually, I feel like I'm not in the green anymore. I feel like I'm in the orange. And then that's the immediate kind of indication of, right, okay, there's something that we need to address here, which is outside of quiet quitting.
Can we get back to a green? Yeah. Can we get you back up there? And it might be something in the workplace or out the workplace, but either way, you know, it's a reasonable thing to say to a modern employer or a modern manager or leader that you should really care what's going on in your people's lives. Yeah. We did an episode where you weren't here. It was a much better episode with Paul Cheatham not long ago, and he came up with this idea that, you know, the old saying of leave your emotions at the door when you come to work. It's like, what a flaw. Do you know what? Because emotions are things like enthusiasm, passion, drive. Why would you want them to not bring them to work? Yeah. You can't turn off one emotion and leave the others on. So you need people to be emotionally engaged, switched on. And if they are just disengaged for a reason that you can help, then you should. I think gone are the days of, well, if you're not turning up, that's it. You got a week and you're out. Yeah. You know, that's not a kind of a modern thing to do now, is it? You should really rightfully look after people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did actually watch that episode. Yeah, it was very good.
Well, I hope you agree. It was much better.
Yeah, that's why I've been working tirelessly in the off season to improve my game.
To be honest, I wanted to speak to you about quiet quitting because it feels like you're not putting the effort in.
Well, you know, I'm glad we had this chance to have this conversation.
Good lad, you tell the audience why you've. But no, it's, you know, joking aside, you've got to look after your people. What if someone is just a quiet quitter then? So there's nothing going on in their work life that they've just thought, I don't like what you're doing. So, well, I suppose I'm assuming, I know why people quietly quit. I don't know. But let's assume their mental health is good, everything's good in their life, apart from they've just had enough of the job and they're not going to put it in. Yeah, well, it's at that point, it's really coming down to motivation and like, how motivated are they in their current role? But not also just that, but how like well is this current role engaging those things that motivate them? So everyone has 9 motivators that kind of really drives you, and ultimately if you're not engaging those top motivators, then that's when your overall motivation drops. You're not interested, you're a bit kind of lackluster, and again, the most logical thing then is to be like, unsubscribe to this whole idea of what you're doing. And is it possible that people's roles have just changed subtly pre and post COVID? So you think, but you used to love this job, but actually there's just something that's changed now. Maybe they're not a team lead, maybe they've got a new team lead, maybe the role has changed a little bit and they've just lost the thing that one of the 9 that was aligned, the motivators, it's just off alignment now. You might be able to easily get these people back on. Yeah. You might stop them quiet quitting by just slightly changing their role, giving them a slight flex in what they do, mightn't you? I think even as simple as kind of where the work happens, as he said, I think working from home was such a divisive subject because there's lots of people that absolutely love it and there are people that couldn't get back into the office quick enough, and neither of them really understand the other person's viewpoint. Why the hell would you want to work from home? Why would you want to go to the office? Exactly. Yeah. We've got that. We've literally got that, haven't we? Yeah, and everyone's different. So even stuff like that, like you can address that, can really help. But yeah, ultimately the
the motivations, and if we talk about kind of incentives for people, what incentives does everyone offer their staff in terms of keeping them motivated? It's always money related. It's materialistic, and in reality, yeah, probably this.
As in, that's what most people think is the main incentive,
Yeah.
or main motivator.
Well,
but actually, it's not, is it?
yeah, if you asked a boss, like, well, how do you motivate your team? Well, we've got bonuses, you know, we've got share options, stuff like that, maybe.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, yeah, okay, that might float the boat of the people that are.
Yeah, of the 9 motivators,
Mm-hmm.
1 or 2 of them might be materialistic and kind of wealth based, but actually control of your own destiny, ability to change your like they're not all money, are they?
No, not at all. It's 1/9 of you've got a 1 in 9 chance of really floating someone's boat on that.
Yeah.
So you've got to find ways of addressing everyone's motivations, and they're so diverse. It's a lot of people may just want to feel like they're making a difference, and in a monotonous role where you're just like doing the same thing over and over again, you can quickly lose sight of that.
Is this, and again, I think it was Craig Smith we did an episode with, who said, you know, I can't remember which president it was, but it was walking around NASA in the 60s and kind of went, what do you do? And he went, oh, I'm putting a man on the moon. And he was actually sweeping the floor.
Mm-hmm.
But he knew why he was doing it. He knew what he was doing, why he was there. He felt part of something bigger. It's quite easy to forget that sometimes, isn't it? If you don't feel like you're part of a bigger thing.
Yeah. And
but that's got nothing to do with money, is it?
No, not at all. And sometimes you can feel like you aren't making a difference because it's such a small. You may think it's a small and monotonous part of a long-winded process, and you're like, well, what if I didn't turn out? What would happen? And again, that's how people can lose motivation quickly. Similarly, people can be motivated just by having a sense of belonging. So being in a team, and for example, if you were used to be coming into the office every day, and then they went, actually, we're all going to work remotely, you'd just be immediately demotivated because it's like, well, I'm not scratching that itch. I don't speak to anyone during the day.
There's no water cooler at home.
Yeah.
To use the old cliche, it's like,
Exactly.
well, yeah, catch up over the water cooler, don't you? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, those are just 2 examples. As I said, there are seven other ones where.
Is it fair to say, Jack, there's not necessarily always something you can do here? Because you might say, well, this person's got a monotonous job. They don't feel part of a team. But it's easy to say, oh, well, you know, maybe something's changed. Something might not have changed. It's just that their motivations have changed, or your motivators generally quite fixed? Not at all. Are they pliable? Do they?
Because we use a tool called Motivational Maps, where it essentially maps out, as it says, kind of your top motivators. It ranks them in order.
At the point of filling in the survey as well. It's like, today, this is what's motivating you.
Yeah, and it gives you a motivational score at that date, and also how well engaged you are with all of your motivators at that date.
As in how much each of those motivations are being satisfied. Is that what you mean? Right.
Mm-hmm. So I mean,
if you're a builder, I mean, you know, you want to build an empire or asset base or whatever the builder is. I can't remember. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Stuff,
the materialistic. Mm-hmm. If you don't feel like you're working towards that materialistic goal, then then it'll tell you that. But also, someone might now be a builder, but they didn't used to be.
Yeah, exactly.
And that could be, so they might have had kids or lost, might have lost someone who, well, that was the reason they were doing something, or,
Yeah, absolutely. But the point is that those, unlike kind of personality testing, that those change over time. I mean, I did one of these motivational maps back in 2019, and I did one about 6 weeks ago. Totally different in terms of my circumstances at the time, what the job I was doing, the realities of that job, and kind of how happy I was in that role at the time were reflected in my motivations, as opposed to now where I feel I'm more motivated because I'm doing a job which I am really enjoying. So, and those things change. It's not a fixed thing. So, as you said,
but equally, some people would sit there and go, "I can't believe they're making me do this." Mm-hmm. They would hate this, wouldn't they?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. There's people who would much rather have what your old job was and are very happy to still be doing your old job.
Yeah.
So again, it's not that one's better than the other; it's just more suitable.
Yeah, totally. And I think James is an example of that. When he did his motivational map, he doesn't score very highly on kind of the star side of things, which is like recognition and it's like local recognition and stuff like that. So you probably hate this.
James is the producer who,
Sorry, I'm pointing at him, but you can't see him.
Yeah, we're talking about his motivational map here, and he didn't realise that was going to be part of the content, probably.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, I hope that's all right, James.
if not, cut that out. But yeah. But the point there is, and James is an unannounced and hopefully willing participant in this example. But two people doing the same job, you can't just say, "But Dave's happy. What's wrong with you?" It's like, well, I'm not Dave.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also, I don't subscribe to the idea that a job description is fixed in the sense of, well, you can't do anything else than that job. So if somebody's there doing a monotonous role and they're a searcher, which is this whole idea of making a difference.
Yeah.
Well, they go, well, there's nothing else you can do. You just have to.
If all I can do is stick that to that, and that's it.
Yeah.
They're never going to be satisfied doing that, are they?
Yeah.
So a production line factory job's not their kind of job, is it? Yeah.
But again, that all depends on the manager's discretion at that point. A bad manager might go, well, tough luck. If you don't like it, get out. While a good manager might go, well, hang on a second. I appreciate you've got a skill set, you've got things that motivate you. So obviously you're going to have to still do some of this stuff, but also
you've still got to stick that to that. But also,
how about you can also go away and look at the processes and feel like if we can make some efficiencies,
or get involved in some kind of committee or management base or an improvement team, or So do we'll call it extracurricular, but I don't mean outside of normal hours. But we'll allocate some of, why don't you do a bit of this?
Yeah.
So we can't stop that because that still needs done, but we'll try and drive you in other ways. It's a bit like kids at school always have their favourite lessons. You've still got to do the ones you don't like, but they look forward to the bit they do like.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, okay then. So the key to this thing basically is you've just got to speak to your team. We've got previous episodes on engagement, your self-saboteurs and 100 other things.
Yeah.
What if someone just says to you, turns around and says, look, you've asked me, you've caught me out, I'm just going to turn up and there's nothing you can do. Because some people are awkward, and that's just life. Is there anything you can do?
I think there's always, just how people can unsubscribe to this idea, there can also be people that subscribe, and that's...
Because you can't sack someone for doing what they're paid to do, can you?
Again, we've mentioned this many a time already, that there's nothing wrong with turning up. You shouldn't be expected to go above and beyond, because otherwise it's a slippery slope to working 7-day weeks and it's like the workhouse all over again.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with that, and they can't be persecuted for doing that, nor should they. So
it doesn't mean you can't try to find something to rekindle what it was they once had, though.
Because ultimately,
you can't compel them to do something, but something to stop you trying, is there?
They're currently unsubscribed purely because maybe they're not engaged in their motivators. If you understand what motivates them, if they realise that, hang on, they turn up at 9 and leave at 5, and they're doing their job, but actually you score quite highly as an expert. You would like to be the master of your area. So
we'll let you go into a niche or whatever. Yeah. So do the same job, but we'll let you niche and become.
Yeah. So how about we up your kind of training budget, and you can go off and do some more training courses.
Yeah.
And then maybe you can get
involved
involved in the internal stuff, and they actually go, maybe that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So it's about understanding people, letting them understand themselves, and then from that point, just trying to make small tweaks to their roles so they can really kind of engage in those motivators as much as possible.
So people are probably going, this is all great, Jack, but what the hell are you talking about? So this isn't the pitch, but motivational mapping is a tool that we do offer. We can do this with people. It's relatively reasonably priced entry point. I think it's not expensive. We're not talking about a couple of grand. You had to psychoanalyze someone for 9 months. It's a relatively straightforward process. You can motivational map your team quite easily, depending on the size of the team. It doesn't have to be a big thing, does it?
No,
if you've got someone who you suspect is quiet quitting, maybe have a quick word. You might get to the bottom straight away. If you can't, something like look at the motivational maps is a way to try and flush it out of someone who, because they might not know why they're not motivated. It's not like everyone's in control of all these things. Well, I can tell you exactly what it is, Jack. I want to be an expert, but you've got me down as they don't know that either, do they?
No, and it's really interesting because ultimately how you do it is that it's an online questionnaire. You fill it in, and then you sit down with somebody, and you debrief on it, and it's just the amount of opportunities there is to have discussions and And people feel so much more relieved because it's down in black and white. I'm not saying it's an absolute science, but like a lot of people resonate with the results, and therefore they go, well, it's down on paper, so maybe my feelings that I've always thought are justified. They're more willing to share, be open and honest, and you can have really powerful conversations off the back of it.
Because this is a bit like the first time you do disc profiling or something like that, you go, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. That's why I do this. And that's why me and you, that's why we have this conflict, because I'm a D and you're a C, or whatever the hell
I'm a blue and you're a green.
Blue and a green, yeah. It's like, right, that makes sense. Okay, then. So again, if you've got a team and you're trying to get them to do something and none of them have got that motivation in them, well, that's why the team's not firing, isn't it? Mm-hmm. You know, you've got the wrong people in the team, or maybe you need to slightly change the focus or mix the teams up, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a powerful tool to help you balance out your teams in the right way, isn't it?
And it's important to have that external accountability, because one of those things that may affect kind of people being open and honest is their relationship with their manager. So imagine if you sat down and did a motivational map, and the person sat on the other side of the table was the manager who you've got a real issue with.
Who's actually demotivated you.
Yeah.
Because again, the old cliche, you don't quit jobs, you quit managers, don't you?
Yeah.
People will often move and do exactly the same job somewhere else, and the manager's going, I don't understand why they're leaving. They're probably leaving you, if you're asking that question. Yeah. They're leaving you, aren't they?
Yeah, totally.
So they've got to do exactly the same job for the same money. I don't understand. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a bit of self-reflection needed there sometimes, isn't there?
Yeah, totally.
Which again, we can help with. so yeah, if you've got a team who are doing exactly the right job for them and they're still not happy, then maybe it's the manager who needs to look as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Which sometimes is a bit hard to swallow.
Yeah, difficult feedback to have, but again, difficult conversations are needed. And all
but if you're a business owner and you've got a team full of quiet quitters and you've got a manager who goes, well, I don't know why it is, maybe you've got a responsibility to try and find out. And it's not that the manager is a bad manager; they just might not realise that they're demotivating the team. Mm-hmm. So actually, it's a great. Sounds like tree huggy, but it's a good team building thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Trying to flush this all out, get to the bottom of it.
Because bad managers. I'm pretty sure they're not doing it deliberately. They're not deliberately going.
They're not evil.
They're not.
I'm sure there are some evil managers, but they're not all kind of going, Dave's in for it today. I'm going to tell you what, Dave's going to suffer. Probably not thinking that other.
Mm-hmm. So again, just being able to have those conversations, readdress.
Because none of the 9 are like making other people suffer.
Yeah,
there isn't a motivator for like sadist. Yeah, that's not one of the motivators, is it? No. I'm going to go in and crush everybody all day. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning. that's just not there, is it?
No, it isn't. No.
Uh-huh. So yeah, people need to like shake that idea out of them. Often they're just not aware. Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there much else to go on here then, Jack? Do you think quiet quitting is...
Well, we had this conversation off air, didn't we? About
do you think it's a new term for an old problem?
Well, as I said, like at the start, like I totally agree that there's people out there that have always just done the bare minimum, and again, reiterating it. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. But it's the quiet quitting phenomenon, I feel like, to some extent relates to those people that have always kind of subscribed to this idea that they do a little bit more, and those are the ones that are quitting quietly, as opposed to...
Because they're not like storming out going, that's it, I'll never do that again. They're just not putting the hand where they would have done. And you might not even spot this as a leader, might you?
No, absolutely. And it's interesting because just comparing this to the Great Resignation is that the scenery and the scenarios and like the landscape of everything's changed so much since then that security becomes a big thing. So some of these people who are quiet quitting actually might have been part of the Great Resignation back during lockdown. But actually they're going, I would like to go off and do that, but
they're watching the news at the minute, and the world's going to end, so they don't know what to do. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So, because this is interesting, because I said this, will there be industries and sectors that are suffering more from quiet quitting? And I kind of quickly, in my own mind, kind of answered my own question. I presume in sectors where there isn't an excess demand for those skills, you're more likely to have a quiet quitter. Yeah. So what I mean by that is, so accountancy is a gig where it's really hard to find people in the minute. So does that mean, therefore, there'll be less quiet quitters in our sector because it's really easy to go and get another job.
Yeah. No, I totally think that's the case.
But if you're in a sector where it's been really battered, COVID, the sector is shrinking, it's not like you can just go, well, I'll just go and jump over there and get another job. We're probably thinking, well, I've been here 18 years, I want my redundancy. If this sector's going to disappear, I'm going to sit and bear me time out. Is there something in that, do you think?
I think so, and I think the best example of that is probably hospitality, that they've suffered from the Great Resignation. Therefore, anyone who's actually in that sector right now could go off and get another job because there'll be 6 pubs down, like on the high street, that
people
will take
are desperate for.
So I think there certainly is an element of truth to that.
Someone was telling me that pot washers in some Highland tourist spots have been offered like 200 quid a day because they just can't get anybody.
Have you got any contacts for
If
that?
it wasn't for the commute, I'd be up there Saturdays and Sundays. But I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, but apparently it's really hard to get people just to stay in these very rural, kind of touristy spaces. They're beautiful, idyllic places, but there's not much there. They're just really struggling to get people to just stay there and kind of do the pot washing, do the basic jobs. So again, there's probably not many quiet quitters there, because they would just quit and go and do the shiny job down the road, wouldn't they?
Yeah, that's very true.
Okay then. So I think it's interesting. As always, I hope you found that interesting. I know I find these things interesting. If you've got quiet quitters, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to motivate them? Are you going to try and find a way, or are you just going to double down and force them out? Probably. I'm not saying you should, but it is up to you. If you've got quiet quitters, there are options to try and bring them back to the workforce and get them engaged, I think, isn't there?
Oh, totally, yeah.
So I hope you've enjoyed that. We've referenced a couple in there. I mentioned Craig Smith, I mentioned Paul Cheetham. I think we did Sarah as well from Duo. All 3 of those are about giving constructive feedback, asking questions, making people happy in the workplace. Hopefully James is, I can see him scribbling. Well, I think it's worth probably linking into those because these all feel like they're in similar areas. It's probably worth throwing in as well. Jack did something on self-sabotage as well. It might just be that something's changed in someone's life, their confidence is knocked, and that's why they look like a quiet quitter. Maybe they're not. You might be able to easily pull them back to it. So it's a complex area. Reach out to Jack, not me. Reach out to Jack if you want any help in this. And a starting point might be just a quick conversation, and a motivational map is a great starter.
Totally, yeah. I'd highly recommend it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. See you next episode. Please leave any feedback, reviews, wherever you're listening or watching this. It's always appreciated.